paying attention to just the injuries and what guys are sort of doing out of the practice on the practice field. I can tell you from a Shedeur Sanders perspective, having that offensive line in front of him is going to be massively important. Having that group all healthy. Jack Conklin and Cam Robinson were both out there today working with the first team during the open portion of practice, so that's a good sign. Because if Shedeur is going to put his best foot forward, if he's going to have success this weekend, he needs his offensive line at full strength. He needs his full arsenal of weapons. He needs all those things on top of the reps that he's obviously getting. So that's a good indication of what things could look like, I think, turning the corner into the end of the week, leading into Sunday.
So they're going to be able to go on this Sunday then?
We don't know for sure yet. Kevin Stefanski had sort of called those injuries day to day, but it looks promising that that they both were out there, sort of still working with the first team, and we'll get the official announcement from them on Friday. But I think that, to me, I'm sort of insinuating here that it feels like it's trending in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. How much of a blow is it to not have David and Njoku this weekend for this team?
Yeah, I think David is going to play potentially. He wasn't out there again today, but he's also a veteran in this league that doesn't necessarily need like a full week of practice to be able to actually go and play in that regard. So I'm curious to see if he's out there on Friday. Excuse me. But, we'll see what that kind of looks like. I think not having him, if he can't go, would obviously be a tough thing for Shedeur Sanders. He wants to have his full arsenal of weapons. I think David Njoku is one of the better ones in this offense just in general. We know Jerry Jeudy's Jerry Jeudy. He's had some struggles this year. But at the same time, he's your top receiver, and you're going to want to get in the football. I really love what Harold Fannin Jr. has done, but Kevin Stefanski in this offense, I know he's not calling the plays anymore, but the offense that they've sort of designed and set up here this year, they run a lot of 12 personnel with those two tight end looks. So having Fannin and Njoku out there running routes and doing things, I think is going to be massively important to help Shedeur be comfortable and know that he's got some guys out there that he can throw the football to. And frankly, on Sunday this past week, you saw him looking both of those guys' way quite a bit with the passes that he did throw in the second half. So I think it'd be a tough one if he's not able to go, but we'll see what Friday brings on that front, because I think he's going to be okay to play.
Will he travel with the team? I know he's still showing he's on my fantasy roster. He was still showing as questionable today. Will he travel with the team if he's not going to play?
Usually when a guy's like sort of on the fence or you're not 100% sure if they're going to play and it's kind of like a game time decision type thing, usually that means that they will travel with the team because they're going to sort of give it a go beforehand and see what it looks like. So I'm imagining he'll probably travel unless the key thing is going to be Friday. Like if he's not practicing Friday, if Kevin just comes out and tells us straight up, hey, he's out, then that would mean he probably just stays back and doesn't travel with the team. But if he's going to be sort of tested over the weekend, see what it looks like coming down the pike on Sunday before the game, then he will absolutely be out there and sort of travel with the team.
I mean, to me, there are some guys who, if they're hurt, it's like, you know what, stay home, get better. We'll see you after the weekend. I feel like Njoku's the kind of guy who can contribute even if he's not dressed. Just being on the sideline and in the locker room with Shedeur, with Harold Fannin Jr., I'm hoping we at least see him. If we can't get him on the field, I'd like to at least see him on the sidelines.
Yeah, I think that he we'll see if he's out there. I think he probably ends up traveling with the team, even if he's like a questionable designation anyway. But certainly somebody that the Browns want to rely on and hope that he can be part of their offense this weekend.
Yeah, it's Vegas, so I definitely would be going out there playing or not. So to be a cheerleader,
But there are tax implications, right? If he actually goes, he's got to pay taxes to the state of Nevada. Although I don't know what the tax situation is there. Maybe they don't have state taxes. I should know things like that. I know Florida doesn't, but there are some states where, as a professional athlete, when you travel to that state and play a game there, your game check now becomes taxable in that state as well, and that's. I don't know. That's what your agent and your accountant needs to monitor for you and tell you if you should go or not.
But I'm like, it's Vegas. Everybody probably want to go to Vegas. But Spencer, I tried to ask Shedeur this Sunday. What was the positives about what took place out there for her to build momentum and going into this week, because we all know, before Kevin Stefanski, admitted it, we all know that he hadn't had any reps with the ones. And that coaching staff has faced a lot of backlash because he had never, thrown to Jerry Jeudy in practice or anything like that. I forgot what lineman was it that said he never even heard his cadence or anything like that, and it was just abysmal. Then you had some, people in the NFL sources that aren't named that says, a backup, a number 2 never takes first team reps. Well, what are you doing to develop him? Because, this is a situation in which, it's the Cleveland Browns, but what are you doing to, help your future out? And it doesn't sound like, they really made any type of investment in their future with Dylan. Dylan did get first team reps even as a backup, but Shedeur didn't. So I don't feel like this team has done anything positive to help him develop, to prepare him for the moment that he is going to go in. Max Crosby is going to be, chomping at the bit to go ahead and get some sacks. And we do know, because I was going at it with one of my mentors on the phone saying no Shedeur slander. He was like, well, you don't think Shedeur has any blame for what happened on Sunday? And yeah, Shedeur does, hold on to the ball too long. Got to get him out of that bad habit. Got to get it out, 2 3 seconds.
We can't play Colorado
Jackson,
football.
mommy's upstairs.
He can't play Colorado football. He's got to get that out. That was his first. I'm cutting him some slack. Spencer,
Yeah.
That was his first time seeing an actual NFL defense, and it was the Ravens defense. Preseason doesn't count. Like, these people saying I saw all I needed to see and he's garbage need to go back to their bar stool and not bother me anymore.
Yeah, that's what this week's all about, right? Like, he was named the starter already. They're getting him those first team reps. They're giving him an opportunity. Like, I think you probably saw on Sunday to a degree why the Browns have been sort of hesitant to put him out there. And I think it's very well vetted and reported at this point that he is kind of, they were hoping sort of to give him a redshirt year. They were hoping to give him some time to sort of just learn and develop a little bit. Now, it's okay that he's not necessarily quite there yet. Going from college to the NFL is an adjustment. But that doesn't mean like we use that half of football to define who he is or what he's going to be or anything like that. And I think that the week with the first team and those reps is going to help him immensely. I don't know that he's going to like light it up for like 300 plus yards or anything crazy like that. But I think that you're going to see an offense that can be effective, that can move the football up and down the field. The question is going to be like, can he do that enough to remain the starter once Dylan Gabriel clears that concussion protocol and if the team sort of decides to go that route? So that's the kind of thing I'm interested to see. You're right, though, too. Like, the way that they handled those first team reps previously, I think it's not because it is commonplace in the NFL that a backup quarterback doesn't get those first team reps at practice during the regular season because there's only so much time, there's only so many reps to go around at practice. So it's rare that the backup quarterback will get those. But the problem isn't that Shedeur didn't get those. It's that Dylan did get them when Joe Flacco was the starter. And I can understand the Browns' thought process of like, well, Joe Flacco's this 40-year-old veteran. He's been doing this a long time. He doesn't need all the reps at practice. I can understand that thinking. But then when you go from him to Dylan and then Shedeur doesn't get the same treatment that Dylan got, I can understand why people are obviously a little bit frustrated and upset by that. But this week's all about him, and we get a chance to see what he can do when he finally gets those reps, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
He's absolutely he needed to get first team reps and just have in his head he knows this is my job now, I need to do this, and the team needed to know he's their leader for this week.
Mm-hmm.
What you said though, Rachel, that I sort of take issue with is when you bring up Max Crosby. I mean, the Raiders, Max Crosby is amazing, but the Raiders are 2-8. Our defense is ranked second in lowest total yards giving up. It hasn't translated into wins for us, but the Raiders are 15th. They can be had. They give up yards. The line just needs to protect him. And like you said, this isn't Colorado anymore. He needs to play the quarterback position the way an NFL quarterback does and get out of some of his bad habits. But I'm not afraid of their defense in general. Max Crosby makes me nervous, but I'm not afraid of their overall defense.
Yeah, no, I honestly, sorry, I was just going to say, I think this is honestly a good matchup for him to make his first start. A 2-8 team like the Browns are, Defense is not that good, as you alluded to. Max Crosby's a threat, but beyond that, like there's some room to do some things against this group. And yeah, like the bad habits, that's kind of what I allude to when I say, I think you saw some of the reasons why the Browns didn't want him to start immediately. Like he did some of that drift in the pocket. He did hold the ball a little bit too long. I think that last drive was encouraging. You saw him stepping up a little bit more. You saw him delivering the ball with some confidence. If he can do those things, and if he can do those things in real time, like as the game goes on, you see him getting better at it. You see him seeing maybe similar route concepts differently the second time around. He makes a different throw like he did at the end of that game. I think that stuff's all very telling. And so those are the sort of some of the keys and indicators that I'm certainly going to be looking for on Sunday.
Yeah, sometimes I think of NFL rookies, quarterbacks in particular, but NFL rookies as children, and they want to do things their way. And sometimes mom and dad be like, you know what, you go out there for a half against the Ravens and you do things your way. And now you'll listen to me when I tell you that is not you're going to get killed if you keep doing that. Come over and do things the way I told you to in the first place. And maybe he'll listen this week against the Raiders.
I like that. I like that metaphor.
During that game, though, he almost, if he had been able to get, those few extra yards, or the team had been able to get those few extra yards, it almost put them in a position to tie that game and go into overtime. He was put in an intense environment, a very close game, a division rival game. Myles Garrett, I look at, it as an equalizer, and Baltimore didn't run up the score like they did against Joe Flacco, but this could have been a completely different tale of how this game almost ended, had they been able to get those few extra yards. So we could have been talking a different story, a triumph story for this past Sunday. It didn't go that way, but, he was under horrendous duress, and pretty much Baltimore just blitzed on every play after that. And, he couldn't get himself into a rhythm. And he said he liked to know every detail about his receivers and his offense and things like that. And he mentioned something about Jerry Jeudy hips and, turning when he's looking to catch the ball and stuff like that, and just not being able to get those nuances down. So hopefully, he's been able to see and intake some things this week that will enable him to have a better measure of success going into this game this season.
Yeah, listen, I think one thing I admire about Shedeur, and then I think he's shown since he's gotten here, has just been a willingness to grow and develop and learn, and he talks he's so I thought his comments like this past week on the idea that the quarterback position, he said it after the game on Sunday, that the quarterback position is hard. And there's so many different little things that people don't think about. They just want, that you sit at home, you watch these games on TV, you see quarterbacks doing these amazing things, and you're like, oh, it's, you stand in the pocket, but you don't think about, how a receiver runs this route and the timing of that, and when he turns his hips, or like where a guy likes the ball. Like, we don't think about those things, but a quarterback has to. And so one thing I have no doubts about, like, I don't know. Like, I hope Shedeur becomes a great quarterback. I don't know if he'll get the runway to do it as a 5th round pick, and where the team is, obviously, as a whole, if it's going to sort of work out that way. But I want to see him succeed. And I think that one thing that's undeniable is that he has the work ethic for it. Like, he wants to be great. He talks about that. He puts in the effort. We've only ever heard that all he does is put in the effort and try to get better week over week and day over day. And so I think there's a lot to like there from that standpoint. Like, I said it back in training camp, but people who maybe don't like Shedeur or whatever, which I think is silly. Like, he talks the talk of a franchise quarterback and walks the walk of a franchise quarterback. It's now just like, okay, can that translate to the field? And if it can, like, I think you have a player that fans should be super excited about if it works out that way. And we get to see our first taste of that, obviously, this weekend.
Well, if nothing else, he's tall. I can't with these shrimp quarterbacks we've had. I know there's such a learning curve of not just with everything, the speed and everything of defenses and that, but as we're talking about with receivers, he had what I refer to as his Whoopi. He had Travis Hunter for a lot, and they knew each other. And those kind of relationships, you think of it like with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. And I'm going to go all the way back, Rachel, to LeBron and Kyrie. Like, he knew where somebody was going to be when he threw that ball. And it's going to take Shedeur a while to figure that out with this group of receivers they have. And our receivers are not great. We haven't drafted a receiver, a third round or better in I don't know how long. We've been relying on our tight ends. So it's going to take him a while to figure out the nuances of how to get the ball to these guys. But I hope they give him enough time, enough runway, as Spencer called it, to kind of figure that out, because I do really want him to succeed here. He's tall. I like tall.
And
I like the quarterback who can see over the offensive line. Call me crazy. Call me crazy. It's just it's a thing.
Yeah, and that's the thing, Spencer, is how much time is he going to be given? You know, because he's lost how many games? How many games do we have left? 7 games?
Seven, yeah.
So, you know, the concussion protocol is usually 3 to 4 weeks, because I did also, when I asked him my question, I asked about your next start, which I knew probably was going to be on Sunday, but the concussion protocol, they're out usually 3 to 4 weeks. So, you know, he's going to have some games, you know, and an opportunity to kind of prove himself. He's going to have some tough games too that come up, but, you know, this should be kind of an easy game against the Raiders, 2-18. You know, Pete Carroll, he might just retire after this. But you know, I think that they can go into this game with the mentality that they can actually win. Now, do they want to win? You know, and where their position in the draft is, but you have to move this franchise forward in any way possible.
Well, I'll say that. No, sorry. I was just gonna say, like, the concussion protocol varies, like, person to person. Like, some guys it takes a week, some guys it takes multiple weeks. It just kind of depends. Clearly, they didn't think that Dylan was going to clear it this week in time to play, and so they were like, "All right, it's Shador's week." Obviously, that's the number one thing that keeps the door open for Shador to keep playing. Like, if this is going to be a multi-week thing for Dylan Gabriel, then I think Shador obviously has a little bit of a leash here to go out and sort of play. But the other thing that's going to impact it is, you know, how well Shador plays on Sunday. If he plays well and the offense maybe looks even slightly better than it did with Dylan Gabriel, I think you got to kind of give it a chance to see what he can do for at least another week after that. Because you, at this point, like, you're searching for answers any way you can get them on that offensive side of the football for some sort of success. And if they can stay on the football field, if they can put up some more points than maybe what the offense has to this point in the season, I think those are all valid reasons why Shador probably gets to keep the job at least for another week beyond that. But we know that this organization, for whatever reason, they love Dylan Gabriel, and I do think they wanted to see some more time with him out there. So I think it kind of becomes like Shador has to basically earn or like win them over with this performance to keep the job. But I think you're right though, Rach. Like I think this game is very much about for him, or I think the rest of the season, I should say, is very much about for this franchise, figuring out what you have in Shador Sanders and seeing if either of these quarterbacks is a viable option to sort of build around in 2026, as you have another draft where you're hoping to hit on a bunch of guys, especially with the 2 first-round picks, and build this roster through that method. So you owe it to yourself, you owe it to the fans, you owe it to everybody to start to get a sense of, you know, where you're going with that position. And if you're going to draft another one, fine, but you need to kind of know and check those boxes with these 2 guys first.
Yeah, but this is not the year to draft a quarterback if you want them to start week 1. It's one of the weaker quarterback classes I've seen in a long time as far as being NFL ready. There's a lot better defensive and offensive line, defensive especially, for me, talent in this draft. There are 6 teams that could lose this weekend and be eliminated from the playoffs already at this point in the season, with, you know, Tennessee leading the way with 1 win, and they already got their quarterback. And then you got 5 of us sitting there with 2 wins, who I think have a quarterback on their roster. So I don't even know that the top 5 picks will be going quarterback in the draft. You may end up seeing a lot of movement from the teams that do need one.
It all depends right now. I just did a story on this the other day, but like the top 10 as things stand right now, there's a handful of teams that do need quarterbacks, and there's a handful that don't. Like the Browns right now would be drafting 3rd overall if the draft was like next week. And the Titans, who would be drafting 1 yet again, have the 1st pick, and the Giants had the 2nd pick. Those 2 teams both took quarterbacks in the 1st round last year, so probably not in line to take quarterbacks again this year. So if the Browns are probably the first team in that order that would be looking potentially at a quarterback. And so, yeah, if the Browns are maybe first up to take one, sure, maybe you get your pick of the litter and that's what you want, if it's Fernando Mendoza or maybe Dante Moore or whatever. But there's going to be some other teams sort of vying for that as well. I think it's what's interesting about this matchup this weekend is that the Raiders are another one of those teams, right? Like they have an aging Geno Smith right now. sort of a franchise that kind of reset things with the ownership. Tom Brady coming over as part of owner, and they reset the coach and GM and all that. So trying to sort of find some answers and some building blocks for the future. So the winner or loser of this game, some of the draft that where they fall in the draft is going to sort of be impacted by that. The Jets are a team that probably want a quarterback. The Browns already have a head-to-head loss against them. So there's a few teams in that mix that could be in the conversation for a QB. But yeah, I agree. Like, this class isn't going to turn out to be, I don't think, as strong as we thought initially. But I do think if you're in line to draft like the first guy up, there's reasons why I think teams are going to fall in love with like a Fernando Mendoza. I actually think the comp for him is Kirk Cousins, and we know Kevin Stefanski obviously coached Kirk Cousins and had a lot of success with Kirk Cousins, so I could see that as a reason why maybe he leans that direction. We'll see. But yeah, certainly some things that they have to sort of consider when it comes to the quarterback situation, and that's why it's important that they get a real evaluation of Shador.
Yeah, I'm just hoping they look at the wide receiver situation and decide to go that way, because you can get Carnell Tate out of Ohio State. See, it rhymes. Or even Jordan Tyson out of Arizona State. Like, there are some very good wide receivers, and it would be nice. It'd be nice to get Carnell, because I'm a Buckeye honk, so he can catch passes and Judkins can run the ball, and we'll be fine. I don't need Jeremiah Love out of Notre Dame. I got to run him back.
I really like Carnell Tate as well. And that's the thing. Like, we got to remember too, the Browns have the 2 first-rounders, so there's a chance where they maybe if they're high enough in the draft, maybe they draft their quarterback and then they circle back and get Tate later. So there's going to be some opportunities there. I said this last year and it didn't end up happening. So I mean, I'm sure they'll probably prove me wrong again. But I have to believe at this point that the Browns are probably going to be leaning heavily offense with those 2 picks, because that's where all their biggest issues are, right? Like, this defense is pretty solid. We know that. But they have to address a lot of needs on offense at this point.
Yeah, I believe wide receiver. I don't know about Fernando Mendoza, Spence and Kate, because it is Indiana. It is a basketball school. It is not a football school officially just yet. We tried it in 1999 when we drafted Tim Couch. Kentucky is a basketball school. So, I don't know about that, guys. I'm just saying.
You're just saying he's 6'5", Rachel. That's all you need to know. You're saying that because you are in that camp of people who don't believe Ohio State can beat Indiana in the Big Ten championship game. You need to listen to my college show on Wednesdays, because we have been talking about Mendoza all year. Mendoza and Marcel Reed out of A&M.
You said I'm in the camp of people who don't believe Indiana can beat Ohio State?
You're scared of Indiana. You won't admit it, but you are scared of Indiana.
Oh, no, bring that on, because you know what?
You should be. I'm scared of Indiana. They're feeling themselves.
Do you think y'all can beat Ohio State? And some kids actually said, I don't think that we can beat Ohio State. So they are more connected to earth than a lot of other people in Indiana. Yeah, we can beat Ohio State. So I said,
just want to beat Michigan this year.
Championship, because Ohio State will be there. So we'll see just how good Indiana is. Just like we showed them last year when they thought that they was all this, they were doing all this and all that. So we're going to show them exactly how to play football come the Big Ten title game. Because we'll be able to beat Michigan this year in Michigan.
All right, I'll have what she's having.
Well, so yeah, I don't know about Fernando Mendoza, because I believe Ohio State will expose him in the Big Ten championship. And Kate knows that this is one of my gauges of how you will be as an NFL player, is how you compete against Ohio State.
I think that's fair. I think that's a fair way to evaluate them. Like, when you play against those best teams, and obviously Mendoza had the matchup against Oregon. Oregon's not quite as good as last year, and he had a really good game in that one. Penn State has a lot of guys that are going to get drafted this year too. I think that was a nice test, and for him to sort of have that last drive like he did was a notable thing. But yeah, playing against Ohio State's obviously a different beast. And, there's certain teams that you just kind of use as barometers against certain players. Alabama always pumps out great players in the NFL. Georgia, like, when you see other teams go against those teams, you always kind of get a sense of who they're maybe, or what their true future sort of looks like as they go to the NFL. And people certainly can rise or decrease their stock based off that. So we'll see what that Big Ten championship game brings. Obviously, Ohio State has to get past Michigan first, which after last year, I don't know that I can confidently say they're definitely going to win anymore in that game. I got to see it first, but they should win. I'll leave it at that.
Michigan is so hurt. They are so hurt and injured and banged up, and yet That is a team full of people who have never lost to the Buckeyes. So there's that mental component to it. I'm scared to death about that game. That game's what, 8 days away, 10 days away? It's a week from Saturday. I know you're not. You haven't been the last few years. I'm the one who wanted to go pack up all Ryan Day stuff in a U-Haul and kick him out of town, and you talked me off that bridge. So I'm nervous. They can on paper. We'll see what they do. We'll see what they do.
Forever. Michigan swinging streak will not last. Nothing lasts forever. Just like Ohio State, that streak got broken against Ohio State. Spencer, put that baby on. Where that baby at?
I can't put him on right now. He's a mess. We gotta get him up for bath time, but maybe next time. I'm sorry.
All right, we appreciate you so much.
Don't ever be sorry.
But thank you so much for coming on. We'll be happy to have you back. Spencer, how can people follow you?
On Twitter, the handle is just @Spencito with a little underscore at the end. And check out the Locked On Browns podcast. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts and at the Locked On Browns YouTube channel. So appreciate everybody who follows along already, and always looking forward to building the community some more. So appreciate you guys having me on.
Okay, you can be heard
Great to talk to you.
Can't mention. So always listen every Saturday. So I love hearing you there too. So, thank you, Spencer. You have a great night. We'll talk to you soon.
You guys too. Appreciate you.
Bye. All right, Kate. Any more Browns for us before we move on?
No, but we need to talk some Buckeyes.
Okay, let's talk some Buckeyes.
You really don't think there's going to be that Ohio State, Indiana? I mean, we both know Ohio State's going to beat Meat Chicken next week. I live with a Meat Chicken fan. I've been listening to the behind the scenes stuff from him all season. By week 4, they did not have a starter left from week 1 that wasn't hurt and on the injured list. They are decimated, and yet they still found a way to beat Northwestern. They are still finding ways to win, and I don't know mentally going into this next, this game against Ohio State is a week away. I would like to think that Ryan Day is talking to his players and saying, listen, none of y'all have beat Michigan. None of y'all understand the glory that is beating Meat Chicken. You need to bring that pride and glory back to the fans and to yourselves. I think the fact that the winning team gets yellow pants is ridiculous. Why can't they get like a great big axe or some cool trophy like these other teams get? I think the Michigan game is more mental than physical. And so this is going to be a test for me of Ryan Day's ability to coach a team. I will say the loss to Michigan last year, and I think, Rachel, you will agree with me, really motivated those young men to get their stuff together for that playoff run and that national championship run. They learned some hard lessons about what they were not doing right, and they fixed it. And I'm worried that this season they haven't been tested enough. They've made it look too easy. Julian Sayin has looked great from week 1 until now. He hasn't had a game like Mendoza just had against Penn State or like Marcel Reed had against BYU, where he was throwing interceptions and looked like he was a hot mess and then had to have some great big comeback in the second half. He has been solid and consistent and good from front to back. So I love me some Julian Sayin. I love me some Carnell Tate. I love Avery Reese. I love this whole team. I just don't know how they're going to be when they're really tested. I'm going to take a breath now and let you talk.
Catherine, can I give out your government name? It's Catherine Arhar. I'm not worried at all. I'm walking on sunshine because my only concern about this season has been Ohio State has not been blowing people out like I prefer to see, but they're playing solid football, and that is exactly what you need. Michigan was able to come back against Northwestern. It's Northwestern. Nobody cares. They're not good at all. Hey, and shout out to Indiana. I know we're going to beat Indiana, but I love their rise in football. They have been the worst team in the all of the NCAA football. They finally beat Penn State at Happy Valley. Truly excited for them, but we got to bring it back down to reality for Indiana. They ride the highs, but the lowest of the lows will be coming very soon. Not worried about Michigan at all. Injuries help and things like that, but like you said last year, And I'll even take it back to Chris Westbrook's DJ Chris Styles. When the season started, because of the 12 team format, he said beating Michigan won't have devastating consequences like it has in the past. And that was true. Ohio State fans, we did not want to see a loss to Michigan, but we could see a loss to Michigan did not matter when it came to the 12-team playoff and eventually winning the national championship. That is not how I want to go about winning titles, losing to Michigan. So even though it happened, it was not as devastating as it could be. I believe that this team is, you can say, battle tested. They had Texas at their house. It was a tough game, but Arch Manning proved to be, not as solid as he was supposed to be. This guy was supposed to be the Heisman favorite, all that other stuff. He might be selling insurance by the time, his career ends. But they were able to, tough game. They were able to pull it out. That things were offensively, they needed some time to get things clicking and get things going. You got Jeremiah Smith, massive. Carnell Tate has been an emerging superstar. On the defensive side of the ball, Caleb Downs is going to be the leader. Took over, right from where Jack Sawyer took over, where they lost Jack Sawyer. He's been able to take over and be that vocal leader. They know what it's like to win the national championship. They're coming back to win that. I do believe that they will repeat as national champions. Not scared of Michigan. Like you said, it is a mental thing, but when they get on that field, things will change this year because nobody wants to go down as never beaten Michigan. That last class that just went down, they went down as never beaten Michigan. They don't want to taste that feeling. They don't want to, they don't want that feeling. And I believe that this year they will be able to win in the big house and get that streak going back again. Freshman quarterback, what's his name? I forgot what his name was. I'm sorry. I don't think he's been as advertised, and Michigan has not went undefeated. You watch the game film on them, you can see the flaws that they have. Have not had a chance to watch a lot of Michigan. Been able to catch some games. I've been able to catch some of their wins, but any team
I've seen all of them. It's painful. Bryce Underwood is their quarterback. He's absolutely beatable. Let's put this in perspective. Bryce Underwood has passed for just under 2,000 yards this year. Julian Sayan's already over 2,600.
Okay.
They're light and day. And for people who are wondering why I'm not talking about Jeremiah Smith's draft prospects, why I want Carnell Tate, it's because Jeremiah's a sophomore. He got to play another year. Mm-hmm. We get another year of him. The same way we got a couple years of Marvin Harrison Jr., we get another year of Jeremiah Smith, which makes me happy. I'm curious, Rachel, from a draft perspective, do you think someone goes wide receiver, whether it's the Browns or someone else, and goes after Carnell Tate before a safety like Caleb Downs or a linebacker like Arvell Reese? Because we have got some serious talent that is going to be heading to the draft this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, no matter who you have as quarterback, who they going to throw the ball to?
And I looked at, we have not picked up a quarterback, a wide receiver in the first 3 rounds of the draft since the Browns came back. Why can't we go after some wide receiver talent? I really want to see Carnell Tate in a uniform here. I'll take that kid from Arizona, but they proved when they took Judkins that they could actually draft a Buckeye. For a while, I wasn't sure if we knew how to do that, but they did.
Love Ohio.
I'm just saying.
You're right, Kate. One of the things I think they think that wide receiver is a bargain position and they can hit on somebody in the 3rd round, but their drafting history, they haven't been able to.
Our leading receivers the last 4 years have been tight ends.
Mm-hmm.
Jerry Jeudy may be our leading receiver, but he is not our leading with yards. And that because Harold Fannin Jr. has more catches and more yards than Jerry does. He's just the leader of the wide receiver crew, which is him and Cedric Tillman, and then a bunch of people we don't know. I look across the league. I play a lot of fantasy football. I look across the league. I look at all these teams who have got at least one go-to receiver, and we have Jerry Jeudy. And while I love him, he has not been right this season at all. He has not been what he was. It was like last year we got him, and we played that game against Denver, and he just went all out, and he was awesome, and he had a great season. And it's like he forgot how to do that this year. And maybe it's because you like Jameis Winston, or maybe it's because of the turmoil we've had under center. I would imagine it's just as hard for a receiver to keep catching from a different quarterback every week as it is. We talked earlier about how Shador's got to get used to his receivers and figure out where they're going to be. The receivers have to do the same thing. We saw a lot of it when Baker was here, right? Baker would throw the ball too hard and it would hit him in the hands and bounce off. It took them a while to get used to the way Baker throws. Is he going to go to my back shoulder, my front shoulder? Is it going to be a little high, a little low? What kind of speed and rotation is it going to have on it? These receivers and tight ends, and even our running backs that can catch a pass behind the line or bubble screens or whatever, they also need to get used to the way Shador is going to throw a ball to them. They've had no reps with him until this week. Nothing that mattered until this week. And so I'm hoping they all went into this week with the mindset of, okay, it's Shador's time. He's going to be here this week. Let's do some reps with him and start to get a feel, and then have a conversation with them. Hey, you're hitting me up here. I'd like you. Can you come down a little bit? Or you're hitting me down low. Can you come up a little bit? Have those conversations and say, listen, my sweet spot is right here, so that when I get it, I can keep running to the end zone or whatever it is. Those receivers all know where they want a ball to be, right?
Yeah.
You see place kickers talking to the guys that are holding the ball. I need you to hold it here. I want the laces up. Like, they do that all the time. I think receivers have those same conversations with quarterbacks, and there hasn't been time to build that relationship with Shador because it's all been about Joe Flacco and then Dylan Gabriel. And now that it's Shador, they can start doing that. And hopefully he's as smart as advertised. He's as smart as I think he is, as you think he is, as Spencer German even said, and he has paid attention. And he has watched film, and he has seen what routes these receivers do well, where they like to catch the ball, and what kind of speed they put on it. My biggest concern about the Browns on Sunday is going to be play calling, because I don't know that the play calling did Shador any favors last week, and hopefully they do a better job this week. But as far as the Buckeyes go, I know you're not worried about Michigan. I think that is one of those games. There's a couple in that rivalry weekend where it's not about stats and it's not about talent. It's about headspace and which team believes they can win that game. South Carolina almost beat, was it Georgia last week? Like, there have been some crazy college games where these people who have no business winning have either won or come very close. And this Ohio State-Michigan game to me is really a mental game. We'll figure it out. Harbaugh's gone. He's gone. So he's been gone. We'll see if Ryan Day can motivate these guys to just play their brand of solid football. I was laughing my butt off last week, Rachel. I was looking at the odds, and they were Ohio State was like minus 48.5 points. And I wanted to call Vegas and go, are you crazy? They're not blowing anybody out this year. They're not going to beat anybody by 48 points. That is not Ohio State football. It's not Ryan Day football. It's not anything they've done the last couple of years. If they get a 30-point lead, they put in all their scrubs and take their time and let the opponent come back a little bit. But they're not running up the score on people.
We don't endorse gambling here on Her and Huddle. I understand what you're saying, and I feel what you're saying. One of the things is that this game will be a close game. They're not going to blow it out. And I think that I wish that we were facing a little bit better team instead of Rutgers for just a little bit of a tune-up before we go into this game. I was never afraid of Jim Harbaugh. He didn't strike me as a boogeyman, just like Lloyd Carr didn't strike me as a boogeyman back in the day. Like you said, a lot of it was about who wants it. And, maybe there might have been a talent disparity at times. I don't think that there's a talent disparity in this matchup that they're going to have in a week and a half. So I think we'll be fine as long as that. I think just the ability about being able to go execute, they're going into enemy territory. Michigan is going to want to knock number one down. That would be awesome for them. But I think that Ryan, finally having that national championship, he's going to go into that game clear and steady with a good game plan and expose Michigan for their weaknesses and be able to attack. And, Julian Sand was recruited by Alabama, one of the best programs in the country. So, he's used to playing at a high level, used to having a lot at stake. And I think he'll be ready to lead this team into Michigan for the battle. One of the questions I was going to ask you, Kate, do you think that maybe the receivers had a little bit of trouble because Dylan Gabriel was a lefty?
I think so. So where that comes into play is in what the offensive line does and which way they move to protect him. And when you think about it in terms of baseball, you get a batter who can switch hit. You face him as a right-handed pitcher and you know exactly what to do. And then you get a left-handed pitcher in there because the way he's hitting righties, and he just switches to the other side. It changes the way you do everything. I don't know that his being left-handed affected the receivers, but I think the line having protected a left-handed, so your right tackle is covering your blind side instead of your left tackle. Now they got to switch to what they're doing, and you don't have your best guys in there because you've had some injuries. I think that helped play into some of the struggles, the 2 sacks, and the pressure that Shedeur was getting because those guys had to adjust to that, and they hadn't had a lot of time. I think they'll be fine this week. That Tommy Rees should be calling plays differently for Dylan Gabriel versus Shedeur, because when you're in the shotgun or you're stepping back and you're turning and you're going to throw right, that means that whole left side of the field is almost in your blind side, right? Because you're going to throw this way or you're going to have to look. You're going to have to go past the defense as you scan around to the other side. When you do that same play now, as when Dylan used to do it, you're going this way. Depending on what those routes are, it'll take longer for this guy who's on the right to get down and then all the way across the field than it takes this guy to just go up. So depending on how fast they are and where they get to in their route, do you know what I mean, is different if the guy's coming at you from the right and you're straight to him, or on his left and he's got to now go across his body and aim the other way to find you. You're now his second or third read. And I don't know that the play calling, that's what I said. I don't know that the play calling was as ready for Shedeur to be in there as Shedeur was ready. This week, I think we're going to see something completely different because they're going to have a whole week to practice those plays. The line's going to be ready for a right-handed quarterback. The play callers the receivers know they got a righty coming at him instead of a lefty. I need to give him time when I'm on the same side. I can give him more time when I'm crossing the field. Like all of those things we don't think about as a typical fan watching a game, but because it takes seconds. But 1 second is a lot of time for you to be able to get rid of a ball if you're the quarterback. It's sometimes it's the difference between a completed catch and an interception is where that defender hits you when you're in your throwing motion. Even when you get rid of the ball, when they hit you afterwards. Rachel, do you bowl?
No, I'm not good at it at all.
So one of the key things that I struggled with in bowling is follow through. It's the same way in golf. My thought is once I hit the golf ball, it doesn't matter what I do with my club. Once I let go of the bowling ball, it doesn't matter what I do with my arm. And I don't know why, but it absolutely does. If my arm goes over to the right, that ball goes over to the right. And so when a quarterback is passing, if he gets hit in the middle of throwing the ball, depending on where his arm is when that ball releases, is going to completely change what the target is. And so if you have one more second to just complete that motion before you get hit, that's huge. And so those receivers got to run and get to their spots and be ready to get that ball as soon as they can. And so I'm hoping we see with this full week of prep and focus on Shedeur, we're just going to talk Browns all day today.
No, we're going Cavs. I want to tell you before we move on to Cavs, my first time bowling, I didn't really release the ball and my body kind of went with the bowling ball down the lane and I fell down the lane. That was how my first bowling experience went. But the people that's serious that bowling, when they show up with their own shoes, they ball in that little wrist guard thing. And I'm like, oh, I'm in some trouble. So, yeah, but I feel like this Ohio State game against Rutgers, as born, it'll be more of a finesse and fine tune game as to get ready for Michigan. So I think that's where we're at. And then on the Cleveland Browns, I think that this will be an opportunity for Shador to go in there and possibly get a win. Get his first win, get some confidence going and things like that. He's been a good kid. He's been out in the community. He's been out in the inner city. I'm devastated about what happened, Sunday during the game. He was getting robbed, to make a bad situation worse because they have not did him any favors. So, I'm just wishing him well on Sunday. I don't believe in luck. But let's go ahead and get on these Cleveland Cavaliers. Last night I kind of was a little disgusted about how they played. And, last year they had a game with Houston. And we know last year doesn't matter, but they had a game with Houston in which they struggled to hit their free throws. And I believe they lost by 1 point because I think Darius Garland could not hit his free throws in the end. Same situation. They would have won that game if they had been able to hit their free throws. And they were not able to last night because they held Kevin Durant to 20 points. It seemed like every time he took a shot, it went in. It's just miraculous. But, they held them to 20 points, but they couldn't get Şengün. They couldn't defend the perimeter against the shooters for Houston. And it just, every time they went on that large run on the third quarter, and then they went on a run in the fourth, but they always were 2 points away. And that's when, Houston just kept putting the cherry on the top of the ice cream. And, it just got away from them. What are your thoughts about last night's game?
I don't feel like – I feel like they think they have all day.
Mm-hmm.
You're 10-6, baby. Oh, it's a long season. We'll figure it out. We'll get there. Some things are going really well. I like that Donovan Mitchell leads the team with average minutes played at 34.
Mm-hmm.
Him and Evan Mobley averaging 34 minutes a game. Love that. It means Kenny Atkinson is doing that same thing he did last year, keeping them rested. I love that Evan Mobley's averaging 9 rebounds a game. It's what he did all last season. Love that. I have concerns that Jared Allen is only averaging 7 rebounds a game, and he was at nearly 10 last year. What is wrong with Jared Allen? Aside from the fact that he's soft, he's the nicest guy. He's soft. He ain't getting me any rebounds. Free throw percentage is horrible this year. And I'm going to say it like I always say it. There's a reason they're free. It's the same shot every single time. And the free throw percentage right now is terrible. And as we saw last night, that's what's going to cost you a game. I was complaining earlier in the season about their 3-point shooting, not how poor it was, but how poor the selection was. There were certain areas where some of the players were really good at up from 3 and other sides of the court where they were not. And they still kept taking those shots in the play on the left side of the key outside the arc. They're taking those shots, and that I'm like, no, that's not your side. Get to the other side. You're like 80% from the other side. I'm not as worried about the 3-point stuff as I am the free throws, because I think there are some teams who live and die by the 3, and there are going to be nights where you go up against somebody who has a hot hand and they're sinking 3s left and right. And the way you combat that is not by sinking more 3s. It's by sinking your free throws.
Mm-hmm.
Free throws are so important. And I'm just looking at our stats this year, and I just want to have free throw practice. Like, can we just have free throw practice? It's very stressful for me.
It's a mental thing for them. I believe it's a mental block. It's a mental stumbling block, and it's a complete, opportunity for improvement, because those are the little things that would get you in a playoff game. Being able to sink your free throws. So, you had the home court. So, you had the team cheering for you. So I don't understand, why they weren't able to sink those free throws when they needed.
Craig Porter Jr. is at 50%.
Yeah.
Lonzo Ball, Dean Wade, Evan Mobley are like at 60.
Yeah.
Evan Mobley is at 60%. I've got Jalen. I love me some Jalen Tyson. Jared Allen are both under 80%. You should be. Sam Merrill at 93, I'll give him a pass. I'm going to take you at 93. I got Tyrese Proctor, DeAndre Hunter, and Donovan Mitchell, they're all above 80, but I would like to see them all above 90. But you do not have 60%. That's not okay.
Yeah.
Not okay, Evan Mobley. You're going to go after rebounds. You're going to get fouled. You're going to get to the line. I need free points from you.
Yeah. And Donovan, is being aggressive. He's going to get to the line as well. Not too many negatives I have to say about his free throw shooting, but if he can be up in those upper 90s, that would definitely help the Cleveland Cavaliers as well. They started the last season off 15-0. They are now 10-7. Last year we were completely healthy into the playoffs. This year they are not healthy, so Kenny is doing a lot of things to make a lot of adjustments and stuff like that. But definitely this team will be much better when Darius Garland comes back. But we need him to stay healthy. Almost each year he's had an injury. He had an injury at Vanderbilt that ended his college career and stuff like that. So we definitely need and want to see Darius healthy.
Yeah. I mean, Donovan's hitting the same 82% he was hitting last year, but it's I'm gonna name names. It's Evan Mobley. He was at 72% last year, which is not great, but it's better than 60%. Like, dude, did you forget how to hit a free throw? Those are the things. Those are, to me, those are the easy ones. They're free. They're fundamentals. You can practice that. You can't practice contact. You can't practice rebounds. You can't practice driving the lane. Even three-point shooting, you're going to have somebody coming at you in your face, putting a hand up, doing something. The only thing that changes in a free throw is the noise in the crowd.
Mm-hmm. And the location.
Right. But you know what I mean? That I just feel like this team there's no urgency. They're okay being 10-6. And I'm not okay being 10-6 at this point in the season.
Especially because you're in a weak Eastern Conference and, you have to go and spotlight to go ahead and be the number one team in the Eastern Conference with all the injuries. But, don't forget about Boston because Jaylen Brown is still there too. So, as we saw when we went to Boston, so they could possibly be in the way as well. So, we'll see how it all shakes out. And then last note, Cleveland Guardians. With the Cleveland Guardians, they now have a new MLB deal. So that means that the local broadcast rights, ESPN, will now produce and sell the in-market streaming rights for the Guardians, a role that was previously held by MLB TV. So I'm looking forward to that. So the same crew will be returning, Andre Knott, Matt Underwood, Rick Manning, and they're expected to return for the local TV game. So that's a great thing. Awesome. And super excited about that. Well, Kate, that's our
top. Andre.
Yeah.
I love Andre. He is awesome.
Yeah, he's good people. So congrats. Yeah. Kate, want to thank you. Great show today. Want to thank Spencer German for joining us as well. He had daddy duty. But for her in the huddle, for Rachel, for Kate, and Stacy, we are out of here.
Oof, oof.